I've been with the system for about 14 years now. So what we do is partner with businesses across the state to provide healthcare solutions. So we partner with businesses that are small and large. We say all the way from Oconee County to the Sumter area, but really we have a large clinic client as well in the Charleston area. I'm getting the feeling that you all are small business owners. Does anyone have any number of employees greater than 50? 25? Okay, so one thing, that's great, and congratulations on being a business owner, that's fantastic. So one of the things that we offer, and it's in the pamphlet that I'm gonna briefly touch on, is direct primary care. We've opened up one practice in Greenville. We're opening up additional locations. This also can be offered on site, but with you having a smaller business, it may make more sense to have come to one of our locations. But it is a per member per month. It's basically a provider that is working at the top of their license, and you're able to come in as many times per month or per year as you would like to. So it includes a formulary, it includes prescriptions, and the cool thing about that is that the doctors are working they're getting incentivized basically for keeping you healthy instead of the volume piece, which I think is fantastic. So there's 2 flyers on that. If you'll take a glance at that, that's something really great to offer for your employees. We're only bringing in employers at this point, clients, not just individual people. So it's a great offering if it's something you're considering. You may not be at the insurance mark to provide for your team at this point. So another great offering to provide for them. So what we do in our department is offer services like registered dietitians, wellness education, Dr. Brown's wonderful services. So you'll see she's one of my favorite speakers, and she just so happens to be in our department, and you'll see why. But she offers sessions about resiliency, stress, holistic care, wellness dimensions, and she is available for hire. So if you would like for her to come to your business and speak, we do have that offering, but we also offer coaching, like I talked about, health screenings and things like that. So I'd love to talk to you in more depth about your group and what it is that you struggle with as a business owner. What are your kind of strengths and struggles in terms of wellness, and are you offering kind of a holistic care? So we'd love some time to speak with you. So as I mentioned, you've got 3 different flyers. One is a very high level overview. I've got business cards, so I'd love to spend some time. I'll be here the whole time, so I'd love to chat with you afterwards. So I'm briefly going to introduce Dr. Brown. So she's been with Prisma since 2000. She's a family physician and a certified corporate wellness specialist. She's the medical director for prevention and wellness with our department. And she provides administrative oversight and medical consultation for all of our wellness services, on-site clinics, and direct primary care. And a fun fact about Dr. Brown that she didn't know I was going to say is that she plays the drums, and I think that's very nice. So thank you so much for attending. I look forward to speaking with you later.
Thank you, Ashley. I am really, really happy to be here. Thank you so much for having me, and special thanks to Justin for mentioning that I could come do this. And here's why. I love working with small business. Because the things I talk about sometimes feel really impossible for large organizations, and so they hear what I have to say, they say, yeah, that makes sense, and then they just sort of move on to the whatever the tasks are for the day. And I get you have those same tasks, but this won't feel as daunting to you because you have a smaller workforce. The other thing I want to make very clear though before I start is this is actually for you. So I know how you guys think, and I know you're going to be looking at the information I share with you and thinking, oh, this would be great for my employees, or maybe we could try this for our workforce. That's awesome, and I want you to do that because that's your role, right? I know you're always thinking about your employees, but also, if you can, take a pause and think about this and apply it to yourselves, okay? These are personal tools for you. Just a little bit more about what I do. As a corporate wellness specialist, my area of expertise and skill, and really my passion, is working with groups. That can be a department, it can be a work unit, a division, or an organization, in creating a culture of well-being. And that means something different to everyone when I say that phrase. Everyone has their own idea about what a culture of well-being is for their workplace. Let me tell you that what it entails is making sure that the environment in the workplace is supportive for your employees to be the most productive they can be, because they are the most healthy they can be and they're the most happy that they can be. Sometimes folks hear what I do and they think, you know what, I can't say yes to everything my employees ask for, and that's not wellness. Okay, I get it, that if we want to make everyone happy, that might look like, sure, we'll grant every request you have. That's not what I help you to do, okay? We want to set you up to be successful as an organization, and we get that that comes from your employees feeling like they can produce the best they possibly can. So that's a little bit about what I do. Most of the time I get asked to talk about resilience, to build on Ashley's point, and come in and talk about what stress can do to us, what resilience means, what are some tools we can personally use, and what are some tools we can integrate into our routines and the culture of our workforce to help build resilience. So I was thrilled when you asked for a very specific component of that, which we're going to talk about today, and that's finding purpose. Because building resilience and workforce well-being and culture, well, those are huge undertakings, right, that we can't accomplish in 45 minutes. We can't accomplish really finding your purpose in 45 minutes, but it's a little bit more digestible. So I was so excited that you asked me to talk about this. All right, so let's get to it. Again, some of you may be out there thinking, oh, I know what my purpose is. I know what I was meant to do on this planet. I know what I'm good at. I know what brings me meaning. I know what helps me to serve others. Some of you may be thinking, I have no idea. I have no idea what my purpose is. I'm just marching through life and trying to check off the things I need to check off. Others of you may be thinking, I know what my purpose is, but I can't live it, right? And that's just as frustrating and demoralizing as not understanding what your meaning and purpose is. So let me stop for just a second and mention the wellness dimensions that Ashley actually mentioned earlier. This is part of our wellness tool kind of packet when I talk to folks about resilience. This is my favorite tool, and we're not going to go through it today because that's not what we're talking about today, but I do want to introduce it. This is there are two really huge bodies of research that show how human beings build resilience, and one of them is around maintaining these 8 wellness dimensions. Now I'm gonna go ahead and give you the punchline here. It's impossible to do. It's impossible to juggle all 8 of these balls optimally at any one time, so it's really about the journey. But just for today, I want to focus on this spiritual wellness dimension down here. Spiritual wellness may be faith-based for you. Doesn't have to be. This is really, again, about understanding your meaning, your purpose in your life, but being able to live it. And let me tell you what happens when folks don't have that wellness dimension tended to. It actually doesn't matter if you have every other wellness dimension under control, you're tending to these things, you're feeling good about them. If you don't have that spiritual wellness box checked, then you can't build resilience in the same way. And this, of course, is the same for your workforce, right? You can't build resilience in the same way. It is the most important wellness dimension. Now, you guys are looking at these and you're going, well, hey, if my financials aren't in order, I'm also not feeling well. And I get it, right? But it turns out that the spiritual wellness component of our lives has the biggest impact on our well-being. Okay, so that's why I'm excited to talk about that one for today, because it's a big deal. It's a really big deal. How do we find our purpose? Well, let's talk a little bit about why we even want to find our purpose first, okay? So it turns out, and you should know that everything that I'm sharing with you is evidence informed, right? I'm not making any of this up. This is coming from the research, from the psychology data, from the health data, from HR data, from robust studies that are looking at what makes a difference in your organization and what makes a difference for you in terms of your well-being, and specifically today in terms of finding your purpose. So the first thing we want to know is is it important? Okay, I've already told you that to cater to and to round out our well-being, it is the most important thing. What does it mean for you and for your workforce? Well, it turns out the data shows that having your purpose builds resilience, having purpose builds resilience among your workforce. It also directly impacts your physical health. And by the way, are you going to send these slides out?
We will.
Yes. So everyone's taking notes, and I love that because it means you're interested and you want to remember all this. But don't worry about it. You're gonna get the slides, so you'll have all this information. That way, take a little, I'm a wellness person, let's take a little bit off your shoulders, relax a little bit. All right, it actually will impact your physical health. Now, you might be thinking, well, that's kind of weird, but think about it the other way. If you know someone who doesn't feel like they're living their meaning and their purpose in life, or you've ever been in that phase in your life where you're thinking, I don't know, I'm floundering, I don't know what I'm doing, hasn't it affected your physical health, right? You don't sleep as well, you may have a lot of anxiety, right? That chronic cortisol exposure leads to chronic disease like diabetes, stroke, hypertension, heart disease, sleep disorders, overweight. All of those things are because of the impact of that anxiety that comes and that discomfort that comes with not living your meaning purpose or knowing your meaning purpose. In terms of you and your workforce, purpose is directly tied to longevity within an organization and economic success of that organization. This is intuitive, but the data is there to back it up. In other words, if you don't feel like you have purpose and meaning in your work, or your workforce doesn't, they're not staying, right? They're gonna take off. They're also not gonna be productive. They're not gonna be performing at their highest ability to perform. You're not gonna have the same kind of economic success, okay? So it's worth investing in this for yourself and for your employees. How do we do it? These are all the ways. And you guys have already experienced some of these things probably just in your own life, trying to figure out how did you get where you got? How did you get to this place where you've decided, I'm gonna start a small business, right? You were thinking about your meaning and purpose. Most of the time, we call it organically meandering. We just kind of go, I sort of like this. I'm gonna open a business. I'm gonna do, wait a minute, I kind of think maybe I'll tweak my business and do that, right? We just figure it out as we go. And that's legitimate. Do not think just because it sounds like you wandered into your path that that's not your true path. That's legitimate, and that's how most of us figure out meaning and purpose in our life. The other things come when it falters, when we start to realize, wait a minute, maybe I didn't actually hit the bullseye on this one, or something changes, like, I don't know, a pandemic, right? Or something happens in your family life, or your health, right? Something comes up and changes your circumstances, which may change your new meaning and purpose in your life. That's kind of when people come to me and say, wait, I'm lost. I found it before, because we were in our 20s and 30s and we were just sort of in the dark and happened to land on something. Now folks are saying, that's not it. I need to do something more to find it. So there are exercises I'm going to share with you. So if you're thinking, you know what, am I following my meaning and my purpose? Well, let's do some of these to see if you're landing in the right spot. Self-reflection, obviously, and this is certainly sitting and being still and listening to your gut, but this is more around journaling, okay, and can be part of these exercises. Hardship. How many, you don't have to tell me, but if you've had an experience like this, how many of you have experienced a hardship, and I don't even want to put a label to it because hardships are different for everybody, that made you go, you know what, this is what I want to do for people because this hurt and I want to do something about that. I can tell you my own personal stories. I went through burnout. That's why I became a resilience expert, to help mitigate burnout in workforces, and in healthcare you can only imagine, right? Burnout's super duper high. And I rested for 6 months after I quit my old job because I was just exhausted from being burnt out, and then I was pissed. Then I was mad. Wait a minute, what happened that a highly capable, smart, motivated, altruistic person could say, I can't do this, I can't take care of people anymore, right? And I got myself back into that. So hardship can, and that's why I do what I do now, because I want people to avoid burnout and avoid that pain. So hardship can lead to finding your meaning and purpose. Education and experience, certainly, right? Many, my daughter's going to college next week. And the hope is that she's got this kind of nebulous idea of what she wants to do, like the rest of us did when we, graduated from high school. And hopefully she'll try enough things, she'll experience enough things, maybe she'll travel abroad, we'll do lots of stuff in the next few years, and something will click, right? So just education, experience can get us there. And then sometimes it's talking to the people that you love, or colleagues, or mentors, and processing that, or me, and processing that and landing on, wait, I never really thought about it like that, but yeah, that is my purpose and my meaning. I also want to say, before we start doing some of these exercises, purpose and meaning, I'm gonna use healthcare as an example. Does anyone have a small business that's related to healthcare? Yes. What do you do, Laura?
Health insurance broker.
Health insurance broker,
Mhm.
awesome.
CrossFit gym.
CrossFit gym, absolutely. Okay, yay, CrossFit gym, awesome, we have a couple of those around. So, I'm gonna use this healthcare as an example because you guys will understand this, all of you will understand this. When I work with, let's say, another physician, and I say, hey, what is it you love to do? What's your meaning? What are you here to do? They always say patient care. And thank God they do, because that's what we're here for, and I'm glad that they say that, but I'm like, sorry, nope, that's great, patient care. No. What about patient care really gets you excited? Let's dig a little deeper. And I do a little trick, you can do it to yourselves if you want, called the 5 whys. Why do you love patient care? They have to tell me. And then they'll say, well, I don't know, I like, helping people. Okay, why do you want to help people? Why then? By the 5th why, we've gotten to something more like, I really love the puzzles of figuring out a diagnosis, which is patient care, but is very different when we're trying to construct the right job for them or the right career experience for them than I love talking to patients. I love hearing stories, right? All patient care, but very different motivators and meanings and purpose, okay? So as you do these exercises or you think about doing these with your workforce, remember, don't let them off the hook. Don't let yourselves off the hook. I just want to help people. I'm so happy if that's your meaning and your purpose, but we need to dig way deeper than that in order to craft the right journey for you, okay? All right, so let's start talking about some of these practical ways you can begin to identify your purpose, okay? Or hone or focus your purpose. So the first thing is you want to think about what your skills are and your values are, and where those overlap tend to be where your meaning and purpose are, right? I'm really good at X, Y, and Z. I'm passionate about that. I really want these to be the things that I accomplish in my life, and where those intersect is where we're probably going to find the right place for you to be. I've got a few things here. Again, these are all going to come to you, and these links are active, so you can just click on them and get to each of these exercises. We don't have time to do the exercises today, but you can click on them. If you've got an adolescent, feel free to use this. I made my daughter do it, but I tell you, it's good for you as well. Let's all pretend we're starting over, and we just want to know what direction should we go in, okay? There are folks, what's the name of the book? I'll think of it by the end of the talk. There's a fantastic, and if I can't think of it, I'll send it to you to include with the slides. There's a fantastic book that I just read about how to rediscover your meaning and purpose when you get to that age where you're kind of maybe trying to step back a little bit, or maybe the younger folks are getting a little ahead of us, right? I've got people that are right behind me ready to take over what I'm doing who have a whole lot more energy than I do right now. They have a whole lot more tech savvy. We were laughing about that. They've got some skills I don't. What happens in that place where we start transitioning from being the producers and the drivers to the mentors and the visionaries? And it's a beautiful book on how to not lose your meaning and your purpose as you go through that transition. So there's a exercise here for seniors, but these are the ones you guys are probably going to want to land on. There's a fantastic area of study called positive psychology. I don't know if any of you have heard of it. It started about 35 years ago. Dr. Marty Seligman, who's at University of Pennsylvania, was a psychologist, and he recognized that the field of psychology that is really focused on helping folks who are non-functional or who are struggling get to a place of neutrality, right? Like survival. He was like, what happens if we not only do that, but we take everyone who's just kind of making it, right? And we get them to thrive. And that's what positive psychology is. So positivepsychology.com has some great resources for you. You can click on these things and they will give you insight into what is important to you. What are your skills? What are your values? How do they intersect? Okay, so that can be step number 1, starting there. You may already know those. They might be firmly planted in your consciousness. Just list them out. Here are my skills. Here are my values. All right, the next thing we can do is something called the strength survey. And this is one, actually, I'm gonna encourage you to do this with your workforce as well. Remember, these tools are for you. Think about you guys. I'm here to hug you guys, but this is a great one for the workforce, okay? So signature strengths is an exercise that's been around for 23 years now. It was also created by Dr. Marty Seligman and Dr. Barbara Friedrichsen, who's at UNC Chapel Hill. And what they did was, before they started the study on the exercise itself, for about 10 years, they went across the globe and they hit as many geographic regions as they could, as many cultures, races, ethnicities, the genders, socioeconomic status, education levels, you name it. And they identified, based on this research, 24 strengths that all of us in the human race recognize as being strengths of others. And I'm sorry, I'm not sure why. Maybe if I click it again, this will go away. Nope, it did not. I'm sorry, you can't see that there. I'm not sure why that did that. But the 24 strengths are here, okay? And so you can see it's things like love, kindness, prudence, forgiveness, fairness, open-mindedness. I can tell you humor's in there, leadership is in there. 24 strengths that we all say, yep, that's a strength in another human being. You can go, there's the link there, you can go to the signature strengths exercise, fill out a brief or a full survey. I can tell you the full survey doesn't take more than 10 minutes. The brief one takes about 3 minutes. And it's going to spit back out for you these 24 strengths in order for you, based on your strengths. Now, I know you're gonna do it, even though I say don't do it, but everybody scrolls to 24 and they're like, yup, that's my least strong part, right? But that's not the part of the exercise. That's not the point of the exercise. Here's the exercise. You're gonna look at the top 5, okay? I can tell you mine are, so this is an example, mine are gratitude, spirituality, kindness, appreciation of excellence and beauty, and leadership, okay? So I write those 5 down. I put them somewhere I'm gonna see them first thing in the morning every day. So my bathroom mirror, my phone, screenshot, whatever, the computer screen, your car dash, whatever that is for you. And this is the exercise. Every morning for a week, you look at that list. Here are my 5 strengths. You think of something you have to do that day. It's best if it's something that maybe you're a little anxious about, or maybe it's a little contentious, or it's something hard you're not necessarily interested in doing that day, but it doesn't have to be, it can be anything. And then pick one of your strengths and imagine, visualize using that strength in that situation, okay? How long do you think that takes? 60 seconds, 90 seconds, great. I'm looking at my strength, I'm thinking about, oh, I've gotta go to the gym. No, I was excited to come here. I've got to do X, Y, and Z. I've got to drive for an hour and a half, whatever it is, in the rain. Here's what my strength is, and I'm going to apply to that. Okay, guess what? You don't even have to do the thing. The meeting gets canceled, whatever, it doesn't rain, whatever it is that you imagined, it doesn't even have to happen. Just visualizing it for 1 week every morning will build your resilience for 6 months. Here's the data right here that shows it. Look at this. In this particular study, and there's literally dozens of studies, the placebo group, the group that didn't get to do the signature strengths exercise, actually was already less happy, sadly for them. But let's say that all things being equal, the folks who use the signature strengths test, which are these dark bars here, look how their resilience went up and was maintained at 6 months from a 1 week, 90-second exercise. I'm not allowed to touch it, and I see you guys are pretty high tech. Don't sell yourself short.
You don't know how to try not to do that at all.
Yeah.
Sell yourself short. You don't know how to make it stop doing that.
Okay, well, that's fair. All right, but even more so, look at folks who reported having depression before using, or in this case, in this study, it was actually low mood, so it wasn't even a clinical diagnosis of depression. After using, look at their numbers after using the test. 6 months out, look how much happier they were than the folks who didn't use the signature strengths test. That's the power of this. As a physician, when I read these studies, obviously I'm interested in the data, and I'm so happy to hear people feel better using these exercises. But as a scientist, I'm like, well, tell me why. I want to know it's not placebo. Like, what's actually going on in the body? And what actually ends up happening, I completely geek out around the neuropsychology and neurophysiology of these things. What's happening is in the first 2 days, when you are reading those signature strengths, you're thinking throughout the day about those strengths because you've put that list front of mind. It actually goes into the frontal lobe and the front parts of our memory bank, right? So you're always thinking about, these are my strengths. And you're imagining applying the strength, and then have you ever like imagined, okay, I put my keys on the kitchen counter, I'm gonna imagine that so I remember them where they are, right? And then when you go, where are my keys, that image of the kitchen counter pops up and you go over there. That's what happens when you get to the event that you imagined for the day. You use your strength. If you use a known strength, and we know that they're your strengths, you didn't make it up because you took the test, are your odds of being successful, having a successful outcome, higher or lower? Higher. You don't even have to go to med school to know that. Like, that is higher if you use your strength. Right? You are more likely going to have a good outcome because your strengths are your strengths. Good outcomes lead to positive emotions. Positive emotions are the second body of research around how we build resilience. So that's how that works, right? By day 3 or 4, you look at that list, right? It's front of mind, it's in the front storage banks of your memory. You think of the event, but what's happening throughout the day is even when it's not the thing you visualize, you're like, wait, one of my strengths is appreciation for excellence and beauty. I could use that here because it's top of mind. That happens by day 3. By day 5, 6, and 7, the end of the week, you're not even consciously thinking about it. Your brain pulls it forward and applies your strengths throughout the day without you even having to stop and say, I'm going to use gratitude right now because that's my strength. That's remarkable. I can't write you a prescription that will do that for you, right? That's hugely impactful. And what they found when they do neuromapping and PET scans of your brain is that you're actually rehardwiring your brain to pull on your strengths. And that lasts for about 6 months. So when you do that, you will be successful, you will have positive emotions, and you will build resilience. And that also rehardwires your brain. Everyone in here should be thinking, I want that. And I also want all my employees to have that, right? So this is a great exercise to have them do. And again, a very quick survey. A fun adaptation to this, and there's some great data around this too, is to ask a colleague and a family member to fill it out on your behalf and see what strengths they perceive you to have and add that into the mix as well. I know I told you that these tools are for you, but I just wouldn't be a corporate wellness specialist worth my salt if I didn't give you a couple of examples of how to integrate this kind of tool into your workforce routine. And so just a few things. If you do this with your, let's say you can just pilot it in an apartment or just a small group of people that you have on your team, one thing you can ask them to do is to share the results with their supervisor, because you as a leader know, if you know exactly what people's strengths are, you're gonna leverage that, right? You're gonna use that. My dad was president of a small college in South Carolina for 6 years, and I used to see him every morning going through note cards. And one day I asked him, what are you doing? And he said, I've got fun facts and strengths about each one of my staff members and faculty and staff on these cards, and I'm just making them top of mind so that if you ran into Ashley, he'd be like, hey, I know that your son just started middle school. How's that going? It's gonna be kind of rough. And by the way, Ashley plays guitar and we need to see, I can get you back. Ashley plays guitar and we need to entertain a guest who's coming to the college. Can you come play guitar for us for this guy? You see what I'm saying? So knowing this about your workforce can also help you to boost your productivity, boost the culture, and also you're setting them up for success, right? So that's one way to use it. Another thing that a couple of departments in Prisma are doing, they tried this exercise. Since there's 24 strengths, they assign 2 to each month of the year, and an employee, we call them team members, who has that strength, let's say humor is in January, they get recognized and say, we say January's humor month, so-and-so and so-and-so have humor as their strengths, and they just get recognized for that. It's a little way to reward folks, to celebrate folks, but it also tells the whole group who has what strengths, right? And now the whole group can leverage those strengths among the workforce. And then finally, just assigning the strengths exercise. Remember, you get 6 months out of resilience out of this. So if you get people to do that exercise every quarter, there's their resilience for the year, right? That's just gonna keep them boosted for the whole year, right? Just that one exercise. So any questions about the skills and values, surveys and assessment tools, or signature strengths? We good? Awesome. Let's move to the next tool. All right, so maybe those don't speak to you, or maybe you feel like, no, I know my strengths, I know my purpose and my meaning, I'm just having a hard time actualizing this. The one thing exercise is another great exercise that I use with folks who come to me for this kind of coaching or for purpose workshops that I run. So it's actually based on a book, or adapted from a book by Gary Keller, who talks about finding that meaning and that purpose. And his whole premise with his research is, what happens if we get rid of everything that doesn't help us move down the path that we're trying to move down, right? And I think we all know in our lives, there have probably been moments in your life where you're like, that's it, I'm only doing what's meaningful, I'm only doing what's gonna help me get from point A to point B, and that's not possible, right? Like, stuff happens. You guys are small business owners. You can't just forget to do payroll, because that's not necessarily getting you to the point B that you're trying to get to. But he does have some great, and he understands that too, he has some great recommendations on how to thin that out. But to do it, you have to have your marching orders, right? You have to have that value statement that keeps you on the path, so that you can say, this doesn't support the value statement, we're not pursuing that right now. This doesn't support the value statement, we're not pursuing that right now. So we actually can try this. I think we have time to do this one if you want to do this one. Simply put, what I want you to do, stream of consciousness, doesn't even have to be career related, it can be anything. I want you just to write down everything you love to do. What are the things that just really get you jazzed? Okay, the stuff that, oh, yes, I love this. Don't even think about it, just write. And I'll give you about, 30 seconds or so to do that. Okay, now when you do this, you can take all the time you want, but for today, we're just gonna play with it. We're gonna take just a little bit of time. All right, again, stream of consciousness. I know you guys already cheated, you already looked ahead, but quit looking ahead. Stream of consciousness, just write down, what kind of outcomes do you wanna achieve in your life? What's important to you? This is tied to values. What do you wanna accomplish? What are the outcomes you're looking for? And these could be personal, they could be for your organization, they could be for the world, whatever it is. Place out a basement.
we have a good hallway. Lots of hallways.
Bathtub. All right, now I want you, without thinking about it too hard, go to the top list, circle the thing that really it just jumps out at you. It's like, yeah, this is what I really love to do. And then go to the second list and circle the thing that just, again, without thinking about it too hard, just pops in your head. Is like, this is the most important outcome I want to achieve. And guys, this changes over a lifetime, right? So doing this exercise repeatedly can be useful. Okay, and then what you want to do is write down these words. My purpose is to, whatever the top thing is that you love. Ride horses. Okay, whatever it happens to be. Was it ride horses? Are you kidding me? Oh my God.
It's right here.
I did not see that, I promise. That's weird. That's weird. My purpose is to ride horses in order to achieve, and then whatever your outcome was, okay? It's kind of Mad Libs-y, right? But it actually will get to what your value statement is, what your journey should look like, your blueprint, your roadmap. You choose the metaphor, okay? Now, I didn't give you guys a ton of time to do that. Go back, take a little bit of time, massage it until it feels right for you. I will tell you almost universally when I do this exercise with folks, the statement they come up with is not what they expect. right? We kind of have these automatic feelings about what our meaning and purpose is. So, you know, a doctor may say, my purpose is to take care of patients in order to achieve better health, right? And that's fantastic. But when you do this exercise, it may turn out to be more like, my purpose is to ask questions and be curious to find out the best diagnosis. And that's just a little bit finer point. We're getting closer to the bullseye when we do this kind of exercise, okay? This is another one that if you get family and friends to do it on your behalf, hey, what do you think I love to do? When you watch me, what do you think gets me jazzed? And what do you think are the important outcomes for me? What do I talk about that you've heard me say that are the things I want to accomplish or to see happen in the world, and get them to do this? It's also very enlightening and can sometimes overlap and sometimes be completely different from what you perceive, but certainly inform you as you're creating your own blueprint, okay? Any questions about that one? And all of the references and those kinds of things, like Gary Keller's book and that sort of stuff, is in the notes of the slides. So when you receive the slides, you'll have all that if you want to go back and look at the, you know, what book was she talking about there? All right, let's try something else if that one didn't speak to you. Who is familiar with Pareto's rule? So you might be once I explain it. Pareto's rule is, and I have to be careful because I always get caught saying it backwards. But Pareto's rule states that of all the things we do, 20% of what we do really drives 80% of the outcome. So to put it, to apply it, say, to your organization, 20% of the work that your employees do is getting you 80% of the productivity in your organization. And that can be drilled down over and over and over again through, I'm gonna see if I can come up on the slide with a CrossFit example, for instance. Let's say your goal as a business owner is to have as many members as you can accommodate at a given site, right? And so your folks who are in charge of recruitment and marketing and all the things that you're doing to reach that goal, it turns out 20% of what they do is getting you 80% of your members, okay? And the trick is figuring out what the 20% is. Now, what happens with Pareto's rule is if you then decide, you know what, actually what's really driving this membership is this particular, I don't know who, I don't want to make something up, I don't know, but recruitment officer, let's just call them that, okay? This person is super dynamic. So I want to elevate this person and make sure that they're really out there to drive up membership even more. But then what happens is the new Pareto's rule is applied. So for that person, let's call them Sue, 20% of Sue's work is driving 80% of her output or her outcomes, right? So it can be applied in every single situation. And basically what it means is life is what it is. We have to do the things, but understand that 20% of what's happening in any given scenario, according to Pareto's rule, is really what's driving the outcome, right? So try to focus on that and try to make sure you're protecting that 20%. So you can see here, I used it in terms, 20% of your clients are responsible for 80% of your business. Ashley, you could probably say that's the case, right? Like we've got 1 out of 5 in our clients are gonna be big, highly engaged with us, right? Which doesn't mean we ignore the other 4, it just means we know that client is driving a lot of that engagement. You can think of it in terms of investment. I like to think of it in terms of time. So if you've got a 480-minute work week, which is 20% of that is 96 minutes of what your employee is doing is earning 80% of what they're being paid to do, right? So it puts it into perspective. Again, you can't weave it so you take that person and you make that 20%, 100% of what they do. It's just gonna, again, drop down to 20% of whatever that is driving the 80%. But you certainly can support it. And so what does this have to do with finding meaning and purpose in work? Well, there is a set of studies out there that look at Pareto's rule in terms of meaning and purpose in people's work and how to keep them from getting burned out. So let's talk about that. It turns out that if I do 20% of what I'm super duper passionate about, which is this, by the way, this is what I love to do. is come and talk to you guys and say, I can help you, and here's some cool things to try, and let's see what else we can do. This is what I love to do. As long as 20% of my time is this, and not meetings with Prisma Health telling me all the new, policies and procedures and rules that are coming down the pike, which is not my passion, I'm not gonna get burnt out. People who do at least 20% of their passion work are protected virtually from burnout, okay? The problem is folks will come to me and they say, I'm feeling burnout. We talk about their meaning and purpose. We decide we're gonna land on this 20% rule. People have to know what their meaning and purpose is before we can start to craft a job that's 20% of their passion. So we do all of the other work that we just talked about. We get to what that is. What is your meaning and your passion? Then we start working with the team and leadership to figure out what does that look like if you're doing that 20% of the time. Is that possible in this role? So let me give you a real world example to help with this. And before I do, let me say that the 20% of the time only works if there are opportunities for flow. Has anyone in here ever been in a state of flow, or know what I mean when I say that? You probably have, and you just haven't heard it that way. Have you ever been heads down on something that you're interested in, but maybe it was a little bit challenging, and you look up and it's like 2 hours later, and holy cow, what just happened? That was flow. That's when you're like really, the juices are going, right? And you're really digging in. So in order to have flow, and I'm sorry if you can't see this, I'll try to sneak over here. It has to be somewhat challenging, okay? But it also has to be in your skill set. So if you give somebody something really challenging and they don't know how to do it, that's just straight up anxiety. Okay, that's not fun. Nobody wants that. Some of you may have felt like that before as small business owners. Holy crap, what am I doing? And it's just all anxiety. There's no flow, okay? Don't touch. If you give something that's not their skill set and isn't challenging, they're not going to be fired up. You're not going to have an enthusiastic employee. This is boredom, right? And then obviously even if they do have skill, then it reaches the point, right? So you're really looking for finding that sweet spot where it's something somebody loves to do, they do have the skills to do it, but a little bit challenging, and then giving them the time to really dig in on that. So when I'm in here, I don't know what time it is. And Ashley can attest to the fact that often people are like, we're at time, because I get really excited and want to share. That's because I'm entering states of flow. All right, so let me give you that real world example. This was probably about 6 years ago. Sorry, Ashley's heard this story before. I had a nurse come to me. She was working on the floor in the hospital, had been for years and years and years. She's probably about in her mid-60s. And she said, this is all I've ever done. I want to stay in medicine, but I'm burnout and I'm sad. I'm feeling like I need to leave. So we did the wellness dimension exercise. We did a lot of things. We landed on the 20% rule. This is what she wanted to try to accomplish to combat her burnout. So we talked about her meaning and purpose. We did some of these exercises, and it turns out she was an RD. She was a registered dietitian before she became an RN. And she said, I really missed that. I loved counseling folks on their nutrition and coming up with meal plans and tailoring them to their circumstances, their life circumstances. I miss that. So I said, okay, sounds like that might be a passion area, a purpose, a meaning and purpose area that we're not hitting. This could be your 20% rule. We went and talked to her supervisor and the team. They were incredible. You obviously have to have a team that's supportive of this, because now what they carved out for her is 2 half days a week, which is 20% of her time. She would take a look at the charts of the folks who were being discharged that day from the hospital, and she'd create nutrition plans for them, which is phenomenal. Because by the way, not only is that her passion area, but hugely important for someone who's leaving the hospital with unmanaged diabetes or congestive heart failure or hypertension or recent heart attack. All of those things, that nutrition plan is gonna make better for that patient. Value all around, right? Things are going great, she's feeling much better, she's rejuvenated, she's kind of coming out of her burnout, and about 6 months later she comes to see me and she's like, yes, this is better, I can feel it, but it's still not it. Like, I can still tell something's up. So we dug a little deeper. Now, this wasn't like hypnosis or anything. Like, we weren't regressing anybody. We were just talking. We dug a little bit deeper, and it turns out she's like, yeah, I'm so passionate about creating these nutrition plans. But what I really realized now that I love was talking to the person about them and saying, hey, does this work for you? Who cooks for you? What kind of financial situation are you in? What kind of foods do you like? And really getting in there and meeting and connecting with the patient on that nutrition plan. This, guys, is why I say don't stop at I want to help people, right? We got to dig down and find out really what's driving this person. So we changed it to not only does she come up with the nutrition plans, but then she would have a 30-minute, kind of consultation with the patient before they left the hospital, which, by the way, also turned into, and here are your medicines, and here's how to take them, and all the other things that everyone who leaves the hospital should have, right? And probably, although I wish we'd gone back and looked over the last 6 years, probably decreased readmission rates. Like, it's, again, value all around. She is great. She's still there. This is 6 years ago, and she was ready to retire then, because we found that 20% for her, that 20% of really doing what just gets her so jazzed. This rule works. It will protect against burnout, okay? So, harder though, right? A little harder than doing the signature strengths test and celebrating everybody every month, right? This takes a little bit of planning, logistics. Leaders hate it when I talk about this one because it can be disruptive, right? It can be a disruptive change, and as we were mentioning earlier, change can be very difficult. How do we integrate that? This is something you guys can be thinking about in your own lives. I know I have to run this business. There are 88 million things I have to do it. Some of them I love, some of them I like, some of them I don't like, but what do you really love to do? How can you make that 20% of what you do? How do you want to apply this to the workforce? Here's a couple ways to integrate. Try it, 1 or 2 members. This is not something you want to do with all 20 of your employees at the same time, right? Logistically, that's going to be very tough. Find someone, maybe ideally someone who is flexible, but also might be floundering a little bit, maybe not in crisis burnout. Those folks are tough sometimes to redirect, and see what happens. Get them to do some of this purpose work, and then maybe, each quarter, each 6 months, each year, even whatever your pace is, try it with the next employee until everyone is in that place where they're doing 20%. Akin to this is that idea of allowing people to have flow. Now, this is highly dependent on what your people do, but if you can find time where there's no meetings, no calls, no interruptions, where folks can concentrate on their work without having to stop all the time, this is going to give them those periods of flow, and that by itself can build resilience and protect from burnout, okay? It's not necessarily going to be related to them finding their purpose, but it certainly can be a step in the right direction to just allowing people to have that creative time. Because here's what happens in your brain. If her phone goes off, even if she's like so engrossed in what I'm saying, and she doesn't look at it, she doesn't pick it up. I don't know if y'all can see what I'm doing over here, but this is what's happening in her brain right now. Okay, you guys know this. When you see the little message bubble pop up, you're like, I'm not getting that, but this is what's going on. Is this bothering you? Yeah, it's annoying as heck, right? I kept waiting for her to be like, she never did. She's being polite. So it triggers the attention center in your brain, and that's going off until you check it, right? And so you can't be in states of flow if that's always happening. So you have to try to design some time. A lot of people will do Friday afternoons, but it just depends on your organization. The other way to baby step into this is just get people to start fantasizing, right? Just get them to journal. What would a perfect 20% day look like? What time do you get up? What time, what do you do? Now, it still has to be 20%, y'all. It can't be like, I work for 2 hours. That's not 20% of the time that they work. When do I get up? What am I doing? Where am I? Who am I talking to? That kind of thing. Just get them to play around with it. Write it out. That can be shared with you or not shared with you, but just beginning to imagine what it would look like. Another story for you. I have been working with a trainer now for 11 years. Anyway, I don't remember. I started working with her while I was burnt out, before I left my last job. And then recreated myself before coming back to the hospital. And we were on the treadmill, and she was talking to me and doing her thing, and she said, hey, have you ever thought about quitting? And I was like, what? Like, it just, no, I went to med school, all the years, all the money, all the responsibility. I couldn't possibly leave my job. But you know what it did? It was like a little bomb, a little baby stealth bomb in there. And little bit by little, that over time, I was like, hey, what would that look like? I am burnt out, I'm unhappy. I have 2 small babies. My husband is an emergency medicine physician, and oh my, it is chaos in this house. This is not working for us. But I had never entertained that until someone planted the seed. So and then look at me now. I'm back. I recovered and I'm back and I'm doing what I love. So it can happen, but that was because someone gave me the opportunity to fantasize, right? I didn't quit the next day, but doing that for your team will help them to start to crystallize some of their thoughts around what their meaning and purpose may be. Okay. All right, I think we're getting close to wrapping up. Another way that purpose can be found, or at least explored, is through random acts of kindness and volunteerism. So just a quick mention about these. Many of you may be doing things in your work that are altruistic and kind. They don't count for this anyway, okay? They count in life and they count in your business. But in terms of building resilience and finding meaning and purpose, it's actually the randomness of a random act of kindness that will build resilience. And it turns out that a random act of kindness is actually the best tool for shooting your resilience up really quickly. It doesn't last as long as things like the signature strengths test and some other resilience tools I teach, but it will skyrocket it immediately. The other thing that it can do in terms of relating it back to purpose is it can help connect to your values, which again is one step closer to figuring out, wait a minute, what's important to me? What is it that I'm here to do? What is my meaning and purpose on the earth? So, volunteering, say for Habitat for Humanity, you may discover, wow, I really love creating things. I love that. I may not want to create homes for my life, but I want to create things. So that discovery is part of that education and experience piece that we talked about at the very beginning, helping you to find your purpose. It just turns out that acts of kindness and volunteerism put us in a very open state of mind, as opposed to our work where we're kind of head down. And so people tend to find their meaning and their purpose during their volunteerism work before they do if they're struggling finding it in their career, if that makes sense. And it just has everything to do with state of mind, your headspace that you're in when you're volunteering. There's a few ways that you can also integrate this into your workforce if you wanted to start dipping into random acts of kindness. But there's something incredibly cool. We do it in a couple of departments at Prisma, and I love it. It's called the Pay It Forward Challenge. And basically what happens is, I'll use the cardiology department. They have a little dinosaur on a keychain. I'm gonna pretend that's what this is. And it's called a Ractosaurus. Oh my goodness. And what happens is, I may know Scott's favorite coffee in the morning, and I happen to be at Starbucks, so I grab it for him and I'm saying, here you go, I just bought this for you, have a great day. But I also give you the dinosaur. Okay, I also give you the Ractosaurus. And now it's your turn. Now you don't have to pay it forward. You don't have to do it that day, but that's kind of the implication. It's almost like tag, right? And so everyone's doing a random act of kindness for each other. The cardiology department has done an amazing job of making people not feel pressured to do it or to spend money or anything like that, but just do something nice for somebody and then say, tag you're it, you've got to do something nice for somebody else. Sharing random acts of kindnesses, even just talking about them, actually builds resilience. So if I come in here and I say, guess what I did this morning? I got Scott a coffee and he loved it. I'm not bragging, I'm actually building my resilience, right? So sharing them, say if you have a staff meeting, you can also share random acts of kindnesses that have been done to you, and that will build your resilience. If people feel more comfortable talking about that as opposed to something they've done. And then finally, planning a random act of kindness for another group. A group doing a random act of kindness for another group doing a random act of kindness. I was working with a department at Prisma, this is probably early on, 7 years ago, and they were toxic. And they had a very contentious relationship with their neighbor department on the same hall. And there was a lot of conflict there. And so what we did was design a random act of conflict. They were already doing that. A random act of kindness that department I was working with, they made baked goods and brought them to the other department on the hall as sort of an olive branch.
Without poison in it, right?
Right. No, they were legit. They were tasty and safe. Exactly. And so then they started reciprocating, and now they have obviously a much better relationship. And it really just took that one kind of effort, that random act of kindness. Now, you don't have to be fighting with another department or business in order to do this. You can do this as groups. Maybe you guys even do it among yourselves for fun, right? A little bit of that tag among yourselves. The last thing we're going to talk about is that final piece of, talking with people. We talked about mentorship and how this can drive you finding your purpose. Thinking about who you admire, and this can be folks you don't know, celebrities, political figures, although, wow, I'm not even going there. Religious figures, spiritual figures, whatever. That can be someone you've never met before, but you really appreciate and respect their work. It can be someone in your same field who's been a mentor to you that you watch doing what they're doing. It can be a family member or a friend. You get the idea. It really could be anyone, but I want you to stop and think about who those people are. But it doesn't stop there. You need to think about why you admire them, and it's coming, guys. You gotta ask the 5 whys, right? So it could be, I admire Marty Seligman because he's doing all this work in positive psychology. That's not enough. Why do I care about that? And then why do I care about that and that and that? It's because he is coming up with practical tools that I can share with people and help me make a difference, right? So really digging down into why you admire the person. Maybe it's a particular characteristic. Maybe it's not even something that they're accomplishing. Maybe you like that they're a polished public speaker. Whatever it happens to be, you gotta know the why of it. I love helping folks set up mentoring programs, and so helping you find a mentor, helping you create a mentoring program within your organization. And by the way, this can be for even the smallest of organizations. Mentoring is hugely impactful on morale, on retention, on productivity, on health and happiness. And certainly it can help people find their purpose because you're talking with someone who has the wisdom of experience, and that can help kind of guide you into the things that you're trying to seek, your skills and values and where that intersects. We're gonna skip over that. Okay, I'm gonna end here because I think I've gone past.
It's okay.
Okay.
You good. You keep.
Not too horrible since we started a little bit late. I really love this from Picasso. The meaning of life is to find your gift. So we've been talking about our passion, but the purpose of life is to give it away. How are you using that passion so that the people around you have a better life? The most important piece of information I have for you is my email, okay? So you'll be getting these slides, you'll have all this information, you'll have all the assessments and tools and books and things like that, and I will think of the name of this book that I want to share with you about that transition as we get older. But if you have any questions at all, please reach out to me. I'm happy to answer them. I'm happy to talk about what we may be able to do for your own organization. This is just a small piece of the corporate wellness that I do in terms of trying to build resilience and a happy, healthy, productive workforce for you. And so all questions are welcome. Please don't forget the 2 at the end of it. I have one of those emails. If you forget the 2, it's gonna go to a pulmonologist who's gonna blow you off. So don't forget the 2. And if you don't hear back from me, it means you probably forgot the 2 and the pulmonologist is blowing you off. Or reach out to Ashley, whose information I feel sure is probably somewhere in here.
I've got
or,
cards.
yeah, okay, got her card. So that's what I have for you guys today. I hope some of that's been helpful. There's no expectation you do any of it, certainly not all of it. But if there's something, a tool or 2 in there that really speaks to you, that's my goal, is for you to leave with something in the toolkit, in the tool belt, to try for yourself or to try for your workforce. And again, reach out anytime. And that's it. I'll take questions if you'd like me to.
I told
Yeah,
y'all
that's great.
Yeah. We're like calling it quits now because I have lots of surveys and stuff to go work on myself. Go ahead.
I had a quick question, because as you said, life happens.
Right.
And it's usually in the 80% over the 20%.
Yeah, exactly.
So how often, you had your week-long 96 hours of 20%, how often do you need to be in that 20%? So if, the month of August and kids are going to school and life is just happening in August, so
Right,
I
right.
can't be in my 20%. How
Yeah.
often do you need that?
That's a
to feel
fantastic
refreshed?
question. To put it a different way to make sure I'm clear on that question, for instance, if I am like rocking along and maybe I'm even at 30% in March, but then April comes along and there's spring break and things are kind of a mess and I never get there, am I still gonna get the benefits of building that resilience and fun? Yes, absolutely. So I cannot tell you that the research says, hey, over a 12-month span of time, if on average you're immersed in your 20%, you're gonna be fine. So it's not that well defined in that respect. But the way the research studies are set up, they are over a longitudinal period of time, usually 6 to 12 months. And you have to know that there are gonna be good days and bad days and good weeks and bad weeks and good months and bad months. So yes, it is kind of cumulative. I do know there was one very tiny study that looked at what happens if you push that higher for a shorter period of time, like a burst, and it didn't have the same effect. So it's a great question. So there does seem to be a sort of longitudinal impact that needs to be there. It can't be, for the first quarter, I'm just gonna really be passionate, and then the rest of the year, not so much. It kind of has to be pretty consistent. So great question.
How important is mindset with this? Because I know I struggle with that sometimes, like you're saying, I got this positive thing, and all of a sudden, bam, something negative comes in. How do you work that into this
That is also
to
a
keep
great
it,
question.
working for you all the time?
Yes. So that has an answer that's,
Probably
an hour,
session,
right.
yeah.
But the short answer to that is, remember I said at the beginning of the talk, the wellness dimensions is one body of research on how human beings build resilience. There's two main bodies of research. I mentioned that the other one is positive emotions. And what they've discovered is folks who are aware of more positive emotions build resilience. And that's kind of related to that mindset that you're having. I'll ask you guys this. There's actually a ratio. It's been discovered and published numerous times. For every one negative emotion, how many positive emotions do we need
7.
Okay, I got a 7, 13, 10.
What's the question? To offset the negative?
To offset the negative,
Yeah.
yeah. To neutralize these things. 1 to 1,
I'm saying coaching. It's
10 to
20
1. Do what?
In coaching, I was always told it was like 20 to 1.
21. Okay. God, y'all, oh my goodness, your poor small business owners are so sad. It's actually 3. They're struggling. Yeah, what you guys do is hard. No, it's actually 3. But here's probably where the coaching came in, and also your perception of that ratio needing to be higher comes in. It's about awareness, right? And so what happens is we have positive emotions all the time. Even on your worst day, you are having positive emotions. We are not aware of them. We are not harnessing them, and we're not stockpiling them. And that's what we have to do with those 3 positive emotions to have that proper ratio. So that's why it feels like it's got to be a lot more. A lot of times when I say 3 to 1, people are like, oh no, because really it should be 1 to 1, right? But you guys are understanding kind of the complexities of that. To answer the question, what we do when someone is either trying to be in the flow, or they're trying to work in their passion work, or they're just trying to be positive in general and pursue that journey, is I teach tools on how to bring those positive emotions forward. We're not manufacturing any. Boy, you can ask Ashley, you can ask my husband. I am not a silver lining kind of gal. I am not gonna make up positive emotions just because, oh, it could be worse. I get it, it could be worse. I work in healthcare, it can be worse. But that doesn't work, right? We're talking about your real, true, authentic, positive emotions. How do we bring them forward and put them in that front memory bank I told you about? Harness them and stockpile them. And that actually will re-hardwire your brain to have the mindset. So it's all about using tricks and tips to make yourself aware of those positive emotions. I'm not sure if that answers your question fully.
Somewhat, yeah,
Yeah.
it does.
Yeah.
But I know, like
It
you
can be
said, it
tough.
goes
It
into
can
a
be
whole
really
other
tough.
books are written on this.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Mhm.
Any other questions? Yes.
What is the best way to present